Order, please. Order, please. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on the Public Accounts, and our mandate is that we are established for the purpose of reviewing the public accounts, the annual report or other report of the Auditor General, and any other financial matters respecting the public funds of the province. My name is Susan LeBlanc, and I'm the chair of the committee, and I am the MLA for Dartmouth North, and I use she, her pronouns. Before we begin, please remind everyone, I'll remind everyone to turn your phones on silent. And if there is a need to leave in an emergency, we'll exit through the Granville Street doors and then meet at the Grand Parade. I'm going to ask the committee members now to introduce themselves. Please, I'll begin with the member on my left. Please tell us your name, your constituency, and your pronouns, please.
Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North. Welcome, everyone, and I am Tom, or MLA Taggart.
Good morning, everyone. Trevor Boudreau. I'm the MLA for Richmond, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Burns. I'm the MLA for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville, and I use he, him pronouns.
Good morning, Tim Outfit from Bedford Basin. He, him, Tim. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Becky Druin, MLA from Lunenburg West. I use she, her pronouns.
Good morning, Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect, he, him.
Good morning, Claudia Chender, MLA for Dartmouth South. My pronouns are she, her.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Timmons. I'm the MLA for Victoria Lakes, and she, her.
Thank you very much. And we also have officials with us from the Office of the Auditor General. We have the Auditor General in the back over there. Legislative Council and the Legislative Committee's Office are all in attendance. On today's agenda, we have officials with us from the Department of Growth and Development, Affordable Housing Nova Scotia, and Turner and Drake and Partners Limited regarding review of our homes, the Action for Housing 5-year plan. So now I will ask the witnesses to begin introducing themselves, beginning with the witness over to my left. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and your pronouns, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Scanlan Dickie. I'm the manager of planning at Turner Drake and Partners. My pronouns are he, him.
Good morning, Neil Lovitt with Turner Drake and Partners, Vice President of Planning and Economic Intelligence. My pronouns are he, him.
Good morning. I'm Michael Kabalen, he, him. I'm the Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia.
Good morning. My name is Pam Menchenton. I'm the Executive Director of Client Services for the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency, and my pronouns are she, her.
Good morning. Tatiana Morren Fraser. I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Policy and Corporate Services with the Department of Growth and Development, and she, her.
Good morning. Chris Morrissey, Deputy Minister for Growth and Development.
Good morning, Vicki, Elliott, Associate Deputy Minister, Growth and Development and interim CEO of the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency. Nice to be here.
She, her. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome, everybody. I'm going to invite the witnesses to make opening remarks. I'll begin with Deputy Morrissey, then we'll go to Mr. Kabalen, and then Mr. Lovitt. So, Deputy Morrissey, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to appear with my colleagues today to talk to you about the progress achieved on our 5-year housing plan and to underscore how essential collaboration is to meeting Nova Scotia's housing needs. I want to thank the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia and Turner Drake and Partners for joining us today. Many of the gains we've made and the obstacles we've worked through on the housing front have been possible because of the extensive collaboration between different partners, stakeholders, and levels of government, the result of which are now starting to show. There is no question we are still in the midst of some significant housing challenges. This is the case for every province and territory across the country. Nova Scotia is not unique to this challenge. Whether it's addressing infrastructure needs, improving housing policies, or increasing stock, every province is dealing with trying to find solutions to get more, faster. Where we stand out from the rest of the country and where we've received national recognition is our early work to bring the right people to the table, understand the problem, identify our needs, and implement progressive solutions. The needs assessment undertaken by Turner Drake Partners in 2022 helped us create our 5-year housing plan based in fact, evidence, and first voice of Nova Scotians. In the first 3 years of the plan, we've seen tremendous early success. We've met or exceeded nearly every goal set out in the plan. Housing starts are up, the vacancy rate has improved, and we've made generational investments, reduced red tape, created or preserved thousands of affordable units, and taken strong action to speed up development. Our work with our partners has been successful in clearing the path for tens of thousands of housing units. Because of that work, thousands of people and families from one end of our province to the other will have homes faster. Although we are seeing some good progress, we know that there is more to do. Housing is a critical component of creating conditions for growth. Housing is not just a social issue, it's an economic infrastructure. That's why we are focused on enabling opportunity, aligning housing infrastructure, labor, and investment decisions, being more open to innovation and new delivery models, and focusing on outcomes, speed, and scale so growth is supported in practical, coordinated way. In 2026-27 provincial budget, significant housing investments are continuing to be made to increase supply of all types of housing, preserve existing affordable units, build student housing, assist first-time home buyers in purchasing their first home, and more. This includes $58.4 million in new housing investments for a total budget of $330.6 million. Additionally, housing has been identified by government as one of the top 6 key priority areas to grow the economy and strengthen our GDP, one of the big 6 as we call it. In Nova Scotia, we have a strong environment for construction, including off-site construction, and we've been proven success in delivering housing projects faster. We've removed barriers to help our construction sector and business scale up, and we're uniquely positioned to leverage our natural resources, such as forestry, to meet our demand. These examples are just a scratch of the surface when you look at what has been accomplished over the last several years. What I can say is we are truly just getting started. We know that just a few years ago we were putting Band-Aids on gushing arteries. Today, we have a system-wide plan and approach to this, and that is working. And as we see new investments coming into the province through defense, natural resources, and other key growth areas, that work becomes even more important. It is going to take more time, but what we want all Nova Scotians to know today is that there are housing options for them now, and that more is coming as we continue to take a system-wide approach to reducing barriers and building the partnerships that will get housing across the entire spectrum completed faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kabalen, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome the province's recent macro-level actions responding to the housing crisis. While structural initiatives are essential for long-term supply, macro-level supply takes years to build out. But I want to take my time today to draw attention to the crisis happening on our streets right now. Our system-level data shows that homelessness in our communities has more than doubled since 2022. Today, you want to evaluate a 5-year plan. We must look at how public money is being spent. Right now, we are operating a reactive, crisis-driven system that is financially unsustainable and socially inadequate. I want to use my time here today to discuss a proven success in the housing continuum and to table a new locally grounded economic analysis report prepared for AHANS titled The Cost of Supportive Housing at HRM. Before diving into the numbers, I want to recognize that where the provincial government has stepped up and invested in supportive housing models, those models work. People are being successfully housed today who would otherwise have no path to stability. But true systemic success requires us to scale and fund both sides of this ecosystem. We need to scale those intensive supportive environments, and we must also aggressively build deeply affordable housing for the thousands of regular working families currently living closer to the edge. The data in our report is clear and unyielding. Progressive governments have chosen to manage homelessness through institutional crisis points, which is the most expensive way to achieve the worst possible outcomes. Our report shows that supportive housing, once built, costs government between 25% and 50% of the cost of any of the other solutions. Every dollar we redirect from reactive emergency systems into permanent supportive housing saves public funds and breaks the cycle, and more importantly, has the power to change lives and improve our communities. As this committee scrutinizes public expenditures, I urge you to look at this report not just as a social document, but as a fiscal roadmap. True systemic accountability means not continually paying the price to manage a problem, but facing the challenge head-on and funding solutions that work. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Mr. Lovitt.
Good morning. On behalf of my...
One sec. Yeah.
Good morning. On behalf of myself and my colleague Andrew, my thanks to the committee chair and members for the invitation to join the conversation this morning. So for clarity, we have no direct involvement in the 5-year housing plan. However, housing is a focus of our team's work. And as mentioned, we led the 2022 province-wide needs assessment, which helped inform the plan itself. So we look forward to sharing our perspectives as independent housing analysts and policy advisors. I'd like to acknowledge the significant efforts that the provincial government has made in response to housing challenges over the past several years, and I was especially heartened in the recent budget to see housing largely maintained as a fiscal priority during a time of broader restraint. Changes at the macro level are leading to meaningful impacts for housing conditions. In particular, the federal government's shift on immigration levels has reduced demand pressure considerably. Meanwhile, supply is catching up as housing starts from the last several years are now becoming housing completions. And combined, we are seeing overall vacancy rates increase, market rents decelerate, and sale prices flatten. Though positive, we shouldn't overstate these trends. A problem that isn't getting worse is not the same as a problem solved. Infrastructure is a growing limitation on delivering market supply, and crucially, vacancy rates in the lower-priced rental housing remain extremely low, and these rents will continue to face upward pressure. Large swaths of the population remain tenuously housed without realistic backup options. So growing the non-market sector continues to be paramount. While recent investments in community and social housing are historic, this is in comparison to the prior trend of disinvestment over an extended period of time. So more than breathing room and cautious optimism, this moment gives us a vital opportunity to reverse rather than simply mitigate housing challenges. However, this moment also risks being viewed as evidence of a mission accomplished and taken as a signal to redirect resources elsewhere. I hope we keep sight of this opportunity and this risk and continue efforts to ensure that safe, healthy, and affordable housing options exist for all in Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Folks, we're going to go into our questions now, and I will say just before I begin, if there is a member who has heard enough of an answer from their question, then they can flag me, and I will call order and ask the witness to end their remarks, and then we'll move on to the next question, just in case you are shocked by that. So we'll begin with MLA Chender, please.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to kind of getting into what the experience for Nova Scotians actually is. And I think the end of your opening comments, Mr. Lovitt, were a good segue to where I want to go, which is that the tone does seem to be mission accomplished. And yet, that is in no way the experience of anyone that we talk to as MLAs around housing challenges. And so I do want to dig in a little bit to what the current situation is now. So my first set of questions are for Deputy Morrissey. The Parliamentary Budget Officer recently found that Halifax has the widest gap in the country between home prices and what a typical family can afford. Nova Scotia is now the most expensive province in Canada to sign a new lease. The number of people who are homeless in our capital city has doubled in 5 years. So we're years into the plan. Housing is much less affordable. And so we did hear your opening statements, Deputy, but I want to ask if you still have confidence in this plan, or if you believe, even based on some of the things we've heard this morning, that there need to be some major adjustments.
Deputy Morrissey, please.
Great. Thank you for the question. And as I did say in my opening comments, we are into year 3 of our plan. It's a 5-year plan, but we know there's more work to do. I think every day that people come to work and the organizations we talk to, we're constantly trying to find solutions that can work. And with a 5-year plan, that's a long plan, 5 years. So we have been constantly adapting to some of our plan as we go through. And as certain things do get accomplished, we look at redirecting either resources financially or staff or time or organizations to other areas where that's required. If you look at rent supplements, we know that's a bit of a Band-Aid with respect respect to what we're trying to do until more stock can become available. But we know if we don't do that, what are the alternatives? So certainly we are looking from a program perspective to ensure we know that the first way to solve the housing crisis is to increase supply. If we don't have beds for people to sleep on, well, then we don't have economic opportunities as well. So we certainly are focused on trying to increase the supply through a variety of different mechanisms, and whether that's through the private sector or through the public bills that we have, or protecting affordable units through our partner organizations. There are many different facets that we are working on. We all acknowledge there still is a lot more work to do, and it's a heavy lift. But without the partners we have partnering with us and building capacity with our community partners and trying to protect the stock we have, but there's lots of more work to be done and more resources to be applied.
MLA Chender.
I appreciate that. And I would agree that it does appear that we have a lot of the mechanisms. But the question is, what is the balance of funding for those mechanisms? And so I think you referenced more faster. We've heard that before. And our response to that has always been more faster for whom? Because what we see is that the approach of, the answer to the housing crisis is to create more houses. But the question is for whom? So we do see vacancy rates slipping at the top. But we don't see vacancy rates slipping for the people who are in core housing need, not just the people who I'm sure Mr. Kabalen's going to speak about who are facing homelessness or experiencing homelessness, but everyday families who are working. And so I'm just going to put out a couple of those vignettes just to see if you can comment, because the policy is only good as it is for the people it is meant to serve. And what we see is that people still feel very underserved by housing. So we spoke to a woman named Megan St. Rose. She told media that she worked 2 jobs but still had to leave Nova Scotia because rents are so expensive. This is happening all the time. Deputy, I think you said that housing is economic infrastructure. I 100% agree. And so my question is, what part of the housing plan or part of the work of government is focused on helping young people to afford to be able to live here and stay in the province?
Deputy Morrissey.
I'll start the answer. I'll turn to some of my colleagues, my ADM or Tatiana, with some more specifics. I think what we're seeing coming out of COVID with what happened and with immigration, so there are a combination of factors. I don't think anybody could have predicted what happened in early 2020, 21 to predict what actually happened. I think what we did see as well is that more people wanted to come and move to Nova Scotia, which exacerbated the problem. I think we have a lot more people opportunity right now with economics, with economic opportunities through the development of natural resources or energy or defense, that more people are wanting to stay here. Once they get educated either through the college or through the universities, they are finding opportunities that they can actually stay here now. We no longer have to tell our kids, go off to somewhere else and actually find a job. They can actually stay here. So our population increase, while it's not going as fast as it was 3 or 4 years ago, our population is stabilizing. So I think that's a good signal that people want to live here. Parents are no longer saying, get out, get away from here. We don't have opportunity. People are now, that message is changing. That's a very positive signal. However, that compounds the problem we have is, where do these people live and grow up? And so part of the 5-year strategy is identifying some of those things, such as identifying special planning areas, the 16 in HRM, that have been identified, of how do we get those starts going faster. If we want to attract new businesses coming to Nova Scotia, as an example, how do we ensure that there's more homes for those people to live in so that other people don't get displaced? So there is a cross-government approach to, even on the economic development side, of trying to figure out how do we get more homes built faster, how do we protect the inventory that we currently have, and how do we work with our community partners to ensure that those that most at risk can ensure that they can stay in their existing homes, or have programs that they can take advantage of, such as rent supplements, where that can keep them until supply can catch up to the demand, that we have programs in place to do that. Vicki, do you have anything to add?
Do you want? I can just give.
Something specific to students staying here.
Okay, Ms. Elliott, please.
Thank you. So certainly we have our down payment assistance program that we have changed over the years to accommodate more eligibility. So we use that program. We just launched the first time home buyers program, which has so far seen good success. We've had over 30 approvals so far. The deputy mentioned our rent supplement program and our special planning areas. We're actually looking at, we recognize that ground-based units is a need right now. And so we've got a lot of multi-residential developments on the way. And so now our focus is looking at how do we expand ground-based units, because people want to not just settle in an apartment, but settle in a home. And so Mount Hope is a great example of that. We have affordable living, it's ground-based units. Our other SPAs are going in that same direction. We've worked with HRM, for example. They've used the Housing Accelerator Fund to create 4 units as of right across HRM. We used our, we've looked at adding gentle density. So I think those are all mechanisms that we've been able to use and tools that we've been able to apply to increase affordability across the province. And it takes time. We recognize that.
MLA Chender.
I appreciate that. I think none of that, to your last point, is particularly helpful to people who do want to stay here now. And I just want to point out that this should not have been unforeseen. When this government was elected, the first promise they made was that they were going to double the population. And yet, we saw none of the infrastructure work that needed to happen to accommodate that. And so I take issue a little bit with the idea that, you know, I mean, of course, none of us knew COVID was going to happen. I mean, there's lots of, you know, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. That's the world we're living in. But the idea that a population boom was unforeseen, I mean, since as far back as the One Nova Scotia report, ostensibly that's what we've been working towards, is building our population, bringing our, you know, the average age of a Nova Scotian down for all kinds of reasons that your people have crunched the numbers on, I'm sure. But the reality is that, you know, in the intervening years, since the Premier said that he was going to double the population of our province, and we have had an inflow of people, average rents in BC and Ontario have gone down 5%. Here, they're up 20%. And so we spoke about students, but I want to speak about seniors, because in fact, when rents started to rise in my own district, the very first people I started hearing from were seniors, not seniors living in poverty. Seniors who had worked their whole lives, lived on fixed incomes. Their accountants have told them that based on actuarial tables, they should sell their home and rent. And then the rents started going up and up and up, and their incomes didn't. And they were very scared. And this is happening all over the place, so much so that the accountants are no longer telling seniors to sell their homes. They're saying, wait, stay in your home, because we don't know what the rental market looks like. So the question is, you know, is the department putting specific thought into how seniors who are living on fixed incomes, which most are, can plan for their futures? You know, many of them are overhoused in the parlance of housing, not by choice. They would rather be living in an accessible apartment. Many of them need to be, but they can't afford it. They're worried about rents. Is there a strategy or a plan for that?
Deputy Morrissey?
I'll certainly start, and again, I'll refer to Pam around the public housing and what we're doing around public housing. I think a high percentage of seniors are living in public housing, and the government has committed to building over 500 new units, of which over 300 are currently in progress or completed. So part of that strategy is certainly to improve the public housing, which is rent geared to income, to make those units available for all Nova Scotia.
Sorry, order. MLA Chender.
Just to clarify, I'm not talking about seniors who are living in public housing or who want to live in public housing. I'm talking about seniors who are living in new builds on Baker Drive, who are living in Clayton Park, who have saved money, who were looking forward to a comfortable retirement, but because rents are so out of control, they are trapped. They don't want to live in public housing. And those 500 units, there's 8,000 people on the wait list. So a senior who's going to add their name today is not going to access those 500 units that aren't built yet. I am asking about seniors who have worked their lives, who have a fixed income, who need to find an accessible, affordable place to rent. Where do they go?
Deputy Morrissey.
Thank you for the question. As I started out, one part of the solution, not every solution, is part of the public housing for those who want to go. As we also identified earlier, some people want to own a house and some people don't, for whatever reason. So there's different motivations, whether people don't want the upkeep of an older home or some of the work involved with that stuff. So there are motivations for people around home ownership or rental that are much beyond that may be just a number, a rent number, which we acknowledge rents have increased. If we look at the investment in rent supplement budget, that has gone over time and has gone up again this year to ensure that we're protecting and providing access to funds to help alleviate some of those current terms in the short term. Just because a house gets approved today doesn't mean the house gets built tomorrow. If it was that easy, we wouldn't be having the problems that we have. And so whether it's the complications of going through planning processes through different municipalities and some of the processes that may have, land that may be available, water and sewer that may be developed, no one level of government, no one partner is going to fix the crisis. They're not. It's ridiculous if anybody thinks that that's the case or the magic wand can come out and actually fix the problem. So we're year 3 into this program and plan. We continue to work on programs that affect the most vulnerable, in addition to right across the province from tip to tip to tip to ensure that we have access to whether it's affordable units or whether it's public housing or trying to help speed up development through working with municipalities or private developers to get more homes built faster. But those are the challenges we're facing today.
MLA Chender.
Thank you. So I just want to, I hope to have questions for some of the other witnesses, but just to tie this up, you mentioned the rent supplements. You mentioned, and I appreciate in your opening statement, that these are a Band-Aid, because they are. And it should be noted that they don't do anything to bring down rental rates. Right? We have the highest new lease rate in the country, I understand. The rent subs are not helping with that. They are helping people stay housed in important ways. They may even, though, be, I would suggest, and Mr. Lovitt would have a better sense of this, they may even be keeping rates slightly artificially inflated because they're not adding any supply. But this government's policies in general are making it harder for people to stay in their homes. I know that there is the CHAP program and others, but they're small in relationship to the need. So we have a rent cap that's the highest in the country, but also doesn't really work because of the fixed-term lease loopholes associated with it. You have talked about a number of things that are things we're going to do until supply catches up, right? So rent supplements, other things. Why wouldn't this government close the fixed-term lease loophole so that people can stay in their apartments until supply catches up?
Deputy Morrissey?
There's lots to unpack in your comments there. Supply is starting to catch up. If I could start with that, number of starts have increased, number of completion has sped up. So we are seeing the right trajectory, and I think what even some of the data will demonstrate, but I'll let the partners speak for the data that they produce, is that the rent increases are starting to stabilize or slow down, which is a positive signal with respect to. I can't speak to what happens in British Columbia or Ontario, whether their supply chain can go faster, can speed up, can scale up, what the issues may have. I'm worried about Nova Scotians. So every day in the department with respect to the housing staff we're working with in the Public Housing Agency is how do we fix the problems of today for the people that are at risk. And so that's why there's a variety of different tools in the toolbox that we've used, and whether the ones that Vicki has talked about with respect to first-time home buyers to keep young people here, or whether it's other programs like rent supplements to keep people in the current units. These are all things we're trying to do. The plane is flying. While the plane is flying, we're trying to fix it. And so that's very hard to do. We got to keep that plane flying, because if we don't, we know what the crash will look like, and that's not going to be a good thing. So we're working very hard on different programs, getting feedback, working with the number of community partners that we're working with respect to trying to protect the supply chain, and whether that's through programs like Land for Housing or trying to build capacity building within some of the nonprofit organizations to help do this. Look at the good work that United Way is doing as an example, that built Mount Hope and now out in Amherst and And so this is happening right across the province. This is what's required, to work with partners. No one level of government can do it all themselves. This government has worked tremendously with all of its stakeholders in trying to figure out what's the right path. And it is complicated. Geography is complicated. Economic conditions in different communities are complicated. The amount of supply chain is complicated. So this is not a straight line. The plane is flying. We know the destination, the North Star we're trying to go get to. It will take some time. This is a long haul flight. It's going to take a little bit of time to get to where we got to get to.
Emily Chender with 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. And this won't be enough time, but I didn't hear an answer about closing the fixed term lease loophole. And I guess what I want to do with the last couple minutes is just give Mr. Kabalen a chance to maybe talk a little bit about what happens when people are forced out of their homes. Like when people lose their homes because they can't afford them anymore. I know that is where your organization often steps in. What does that look like for people?
Mr. Kabalen.
Through the chair to the member, I think the picture of homelessness is as unique as the almost 2,000 people experiencing it in HRM today. And I think what happens is people find themselves experiencing homelessness long after they're actually been experiencing homelessness. So the journey down often looks like, you might have, your relationship may break down, or your employment situation may break down, and you're staying with friends for a while until that situation breaks down. And so when people present themselves to the system of care around homelessness, whether that be a shelter, a supportive housing worker, or whatever that might be, it's very unique. I think what we like to delayer is the stereotypes around what we have in our minds around a person experiencing homelessness is a very, very small number of the people actually experiencing homelessness. Many of the people, we think closing encampments ends homelessness. It doesn't. It hides homelessness. Shelters aren't housing. And so why I spoke today about supportive housing, why we released the report today about supportive housing, because there's not many investments you can make that have the best possible outcome for the recipient and can save the taxpayer significant dollars. So we can, the experience of homelessness is really, we want it to be rare, brief, and non-recurring. Unfortunately, because we're relying on other systems to support people when they enter into homelessness, it's not. People are languishing. Over 75% of the people of the 2,000 we track have been experiencing that for 6 months or more, which we call chronic homelessness. And there's lots of social work indicators as to when chronicity comes in, the other social impacts to that person's life. It becomes a very traumatic situation and more challenging, and only ends up costing our systems more. So, continuing to undersupply deeply affordable housing, continuing to undersupply supportive housing is just a choice to spend more public money on worse outcomes. So the taxpayer is already paying for chronic homelessness. We're just paying for it in the wrong things, in healthcare, in corrections, in long-term care, in shelter beds, when we could save money and have better outcomes. And so I hope that answers your question, member.
That's the time. I was just going to ask, though, Mr. Kabalen, if you could, you said you wanted to table your report. Do you have it here for us, or?
We did. Madam Chair, we did send it as part of our package.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're going to move on to MLA Rankin. Okay.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I think when I see the purported success that the government states that we've had in housing developments, there's a big focus on housing starts. And I would challenge that a little bit, especially from my perspective in my own neighborhood in the especially BLT area, so the Timberlea area, where there is tremendous growth, maybe the fastest growing community, second to maybe the Bedford West area. But all those housing starts that are exploding at a Timberlea in the Brunello area and in Beachville and Lovitt Lake were actually approved before this government, before the government previous to that. Goes back to, specific to Brunello, 2001 was the development agreement. So that's the market. The market is pushing primarily the growth of the housing starts. That's not government. Government's not impacting that in any way. But before even my colleague may have been on council at the time that was approved, but that was, decades ago. But what we have here, I'm increasingly convinced, is market failure and a lack of attention to the market failure. So I appreciate the comments from Mr. Kaplan in describing the value of supportive housing, non-market housing, and I want to get to specific questions around that. But I wanted to see what progress this government has actually made in the traction of these special planning areas. So out of the 16 planning areas that are in Halifax, how many units are actually constructed that this government had some involvement in, not approved, but completed. How many housing units are completed, and what new infrastructure is ready to go to support those housing starts?
And that's for Deputy Morrissey. MLA Rankin?
Yes.
For the Deputy. Deputy Morrissey.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start and I'll ask Vicki to give a little bit more context around the Executive Panel on Housing as she chairs the Executive Panel group on the details of what started. The whole concept of the Executive Panel was to speed up the process of making sure that we can get designated areas and housings built faster. It doesn't mean we skip any steps. The studies and reports that got to be done still got to be done. But we're hoping to collapse and condense some of the regulatory timelines and speed up those processes so that things can be developed faster. So as you mentioned, some of those housing that are being built now was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. We're hoping to condense that time period. Some of the things that are under control is the regulatory regimes that are in place to ensure that we can speed these things up and work with partners like HRM and other funding partners such as the federal government and public works, and how do we get water and sewer put into place. It's a complex, trying to build neighborhoods is complex and it requires multiple different partners. No one level of government is just providing the money. Multiple levels of government are providing money. People have limitations on capacity of funding. There are certain timelines and consultation that are required, certain studies that are required. So what we're trying to do is execute on a plan to reduce the regulatory burden, reduce the red tape, speed up the process, identify the areas that can and are quickly can be embraced. There's still development agreements that
The deputy is becoming well trained at this committee. Order, MLA Rankin, please.
And I don't like to cut people off, but the question really is how many units are actually completed and when infrastructure is being built. I know the purpose. We've talked about the purpose of why we need to speed up, but I want the evidence of actually how this is speeding up housing developments. How many units since the 4-year strategy started, and what infrastructure is there in terms of sewer and water?
Deputy Morrissey.
quickly going to defer to the expert on the executive panel, to Vicki.
Okay, Ms. Elliott, please.
If you're speaking about special planning areas specifically, I can tell you almost 11,000 units of the over 60,000 that have been designated are under development, approved, and ready to go.
Order, please. I believe the question was how many are finished? Oh, sorry, Ms. Elliott.
Sorry. I'll have to get back to you on how many are actually completed, because what we track are those that are planning in progress, under construction, and completed. So we actually capture that stat as a whole, because they're coming online so quickly that it's really difficult for us, because they change, that statistic changes quite quickly.
MLA Rankin?
Yeah, I think a breakdown would be good. I think to show how many housing starts are attributed to these special planning areas and how many were already approved before this strategy started would be good. But I want to get back to that, the point that experts have been making for a long time in terms of the need to really focus on non-market housing. And there has been some investment, and I think sometimes it's convenient to point to great work that nonprofits do. One of them was mentioned today. But the scale that's needed when the government talks about new supply, we need supply. Supply is going to solve everything. And, you know, the federal government's talking more about this, and that you look across the world, especially Minister Robertson has pointed, and I think it's because of his municipal experiences, that places have 20 or 30% non-market housing in the Netherlands and across in Europe. And here, I wonder what the percentage of Nova Scotia's housing stock is currently non-market, because it gets lost when we're talking about new supply, new supply. My colleague kind of pointed out how supply for whom. And you can build all the Brunel Estates or all the special planning areas in the world, but the cost of the supplies that go into constructing these units, the cost of the labor that goes into constructing these single-family homes is not going to provide the kind of market pressures to bring down the price for people that are simply out of the market and will only be able to afford a home, most of them, if they inherit wealth. So we're losing a generation to that. But we need to get back to government's role in addressing the market failure. And I think we can't do that unless we understand the percentages of those different segments, and not just say we have so many housing starts. We're doing great. We got tens of thousands of housing starts. So I think the first critical question, if we have a strategy, is what is the target and where are we starting from? So what percentage of Nova Scotia's housing stock is currently non-market?
MLA Rankin, can you just clarify, are you saying you want to know how many of the current,
Yes.
the new construction is?
No, in the current housing stock first.
The current housing
That's the
stock,
first
I'm
question.
sorry. Okay, and that is for
Deputy
Morrissey.
Great. Thank you for the question. And I'm going to defer to Tatiana in a second, who has some of the specific numbers. I think the number's around 18,000 total units, but she can give you the breakdown with respect to that. I think we do need to be careful of how we compare to other jurisdictions, such as Europe, the UK, and the numbers that they may have, or places in Scandinavia. And the reasons why, there's a lot of history as to why the UK's public housing stock is what it is. That is a history lesson that we probably don't have time to talk about today, but I would agree that those public housing stocks are higher, given war, things that happened back in the 50s and 60s that were out of their control, and different government systems and social systems that may exist in Scandinavia as an example. So I think we need to be careful on how we compare other jurisdictions with respect to that. I'll let Tatiana talk to specifically some of the numbers. Go ahead, Tatiana.
Okay, Ms. Morren Fraser, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. So in terms of the existing stock, we do have a good sense of what the proportion of non-market housing is across the existing stock today. So we know that our own public housing owned by the province contributes over 12,000 units. We know that our partners in the nonprofit sector contribute up between 25 and 3,000. We've got co-ops as well on top of that, over 2,000. And then supportive housing, as more and more comes online, over 1,000. So roughly 18,000 units that we currently are counting. And again, we're always looking to refine that and to improve our numbers working with our partners, is what we would get to as sort of what we call non-market housing. And that gets in Nova Scotia to around 4%. So somewhere between 3 and 4%. And that's very consistent with other provinces in Canada. To your point, it is a bit different if you looked at the OECD average, and then when you looked at those very specific Scandinavian countries, those are much higher again, the 20% that you referenced. So very different. And to the deputy's point, there are some very significant structural differences in the way that the housing systems in those Scandinavian countries are set up. They've got a completely different architecture in terms of the system than does North America. And so there's some reasons for why that is and who accesses that housing and who it's targeted to. So it has a very different history and trajectory that perhaps leads to that difference. But that's where we are at today, and we know that with the programs that others have mentioned, where we're focusing on the creation of more non-market housing, that's what we're working towards, improving those figures to try to support more community non-market housing.
Emily Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I can appreciate that other provinces are also struggling to meet the required supply, but I don't think we should be careful, especially when we have a federal minister that is pointing to the same thing and the same gap that I'm pointing to today, and especially that we have thousands and thousands of people waiting to access non-market housing. And if the public, if the government can't build it, we have options with those nonprofit organizations, with co-ops, and so all of us, I'm happy that we have ADSM hosts that we worked with creatively to build non-market, permanent non-market, sustainable, low rent for folks that need it to address the immediate acute problem. All of the MLAs around the table should have these kind of projects underway right now to match the need. So I'm not hearing a clear identification, acceptance of the problem and the market failure from the government to address this. I'd like maybe Mr. Kabalen to weigh in on his view on the need to address this market failure, and then maybe government can respond to their plans, and if they agree that we need to increase the percentage of non-market units that are in the housing mix.
Mr. Kabalen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to the member. I think we would confirm the numbers Ms. Fraser spoke as well based on our data. I think to look at those numbers differently, 96.7% of all housing in Nova Scotia is market housing. So to answer your question in inverse, because I think that's an A+ if you're going for a grade, so it's a significant, it's a big share of the market. We advocated AHANS that the community housing sector be 20%, like our peers in Europe, or at least to push to the 7% that is the OECD average. Those historical differences are true, and we would acknowledge that those historical differences are true, but they're namely because there hasn't been the political will through successive governments to make the investments in public housing, particularly in Nova Scotia since the 90s. And all three major parties have had the opportunity to govern and have not taken the opportunity to make those investments. It's not a problem that belongs to this government, to this department. These systemic issues cross governments, cross departments, cross all levels of governments. But why we see 20%? Because in the jurisdictions where 20% of the market is not, of the housing is non-market or is community owned or is government sponsored is another way to put that, because ultimately it comes forward due to government's investment. We don't see the booms and busts of housing crises. And so in Nova Scotia, this is the first time we've dealt with this in a long time, because our population has been generally static and the market has been able to solve the problem of affordable housing until it couldn't. And that's why we need it, because there will be times when the market can't solve, and now we're left having meetings like today trying to figure out how do we solve for the long term. And so by committing to a goal at either 7% like Minister Robertson is pushing for, or 20% like we and our peers in the community housing sector commit for, it's not about solving for today, although it will in the long term and at the macro level. It will solve for the next generation and the generation after that. And so, when we speak about investing government dollars in solutions that save government money in the long term, these are the types of policies. If we had that much housing in community housing, when population spikes, when whatever the next crisis is that the future governments will face, housing won't be the fundamental issue that we're talking about. It'll be the other systemic issues that we can pivot to. And so, to me, it's a noble cause to solve the crisis. We know it can be solved, and then take that off the ledger for government to have to solve in a future government. So, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. MLA Rankin?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm interested in government comments, but I'm running out of time for this round. So I want to talk about a non-market approval by this government back in March of 2024, which is a commitment to adding an elevator at the Bellevue apartment complex for seniors in Grand Etang, as well as building new affordable housing for seniors on that same site. Residents were told construction would start in 2024 with completion target for the fall of 2025. Yet here we are 2 years later, seniors in Grand Etang are still climbing stairs every day or finding themselves effectively confined to the upper floors of their building. Can the government explain what happened to this project? Was it delayed, scaled back, or fully abandoned?
Deputy Morrissey.
Sure, I'll start. Thank you for the question, and I may call upon Pam to give a little more details here in the public housing piece. The procurement for that particular piece was canceled. It came in over budget. So what we've done since then is contracted Build Nova Scotia to go out and do a better site selection process to ensure that we have sites that are more appropriate due to whatever services that may be required, closer to services, public services that may be better for that client group. So they've assessed in the last 6-7 months, have gone out and assessed over 100 different sites across the province, including ones in that area. But that site was not appropriate. The site that was selected was not appropriate. The cost did not come in line, and it's prudent for us to make sure that we're spending public dollars appropriately. So we're still going through the process of identifying the final sites across the entire province. When the contract was awarded yesterday in Windsor, as an example, where actually we saw a very good price, and prices are starting to come to more appropriate to what we had with respect to our budgets. And so that process drove a lot of competition. So we've learned a lot in the last year, maybe 2 years, to make sure we can be more competitive, to get the right size units, the right price units in the right locations to meet that demand.
MLA Rankin, with 5 minutes.
Yeah, and respectfully, this is not a government that has a particular reputation for spending government money prudently and has made it regular business as sole source contracts. If there is a high priority to get this built, you would find a provider and you'd build it right away. So if you could give a current timeline for folks that are asking, but also just the accessibility that should be something that is pretty elementary to have happen and getting an elevator in the existing apartments. Can we have a commitment today that will happen?
Deputy Morrissey.
Thank you for the question. We're committed to making sure we fulfill the government mandate of building over 500 homes across Nova Scotia. And we continue on that track with having over 300 either started or completed in that. And those homes include homes for right across the province. Specifically to the elevator issue, I'll defer to Pam if you don't mind.
Ms. Menchenton.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so that's something we're still looking at in Grand Etang. So it's there's still some work to be done on the site and figuring out how we can proceed there. I want to point out too that we're working with Build Nova Scotia. Those are our partners in building the new public housing structures, and they have a great website that has all the status of all the new builds on their website. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested in that to go see their website. It's great. And just speaking of accessibility, so I understand what you're saying, and those are seniors' buildings, and we want to make sure that we are adding more accessible units. And that's one of the commitments of the new builds, certainly. All the bottom floors will be fully accessible. And we continue to renovate units in our current buildings to make them accessible as well. And elevators where appropriate. Sometimes buildings don't lend themselves well to installing elevators. You have to remove units in some cases, but there's some innovative solutions certainly that we are still thinking through, and Grand Etang we still continue to look at.
MLA Rankin, 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I just think it's more of a rights issue. It just harkens back to when I had a child that couldn't reach the second level of a school in my first year being an MLA. And it took the media attention to get the government to act and get a stair lift in that school so that he could be with his peers. And it goes back to priorities. Government can act very quickly when it wants to act on situations like that. So from the government's perspective on non-market units, I don't hear a lack of urgency or even an acknowledgement of the problem of this clear market failure that we need to address. Is there a target for non-market units or percentage of non-market units? And why has the homelessness strategy not been released that was committed to in this plan? Is it because there is, we all know what the problem is and that government's not prepared to meet the moment to build what's required to address this segment of the population? We know the numbers have risen exponentially during this government's mandate. What is the reason why it's been delayed so long, and why is there no specific clear target to grow the public housing stock, to grow the nonprofit buildings, to grow the co-op arrangements that we need right now to address this acute issue across the province?
Deputy Morrissey, please, with 1 minute.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. There is a plan when we're proceeding. We've invested $85 million over 5 years to advance supportive housing. It includes 1,085 new supportive housing units. So again, working with partners, nonprofit sectors, new builds in public housing. The numbers, we continue to work on a plan through multiple different partners to increase that number of non-market housing. There's more work to be done. We acknowledge that. We're in year 3 of the 5-year plan specific to the supportive housing plan. We continue to work on many different facets of the plan over the 5 years. As we've identified, there are lots of different programs we are working. They're evolving, whether it's increasing different funding in different programs, innovation in new programs to meet some of the requirements. There's lots of work being done. Tatiana, anything else you want to add on?
Sorry, we're at time, so I'm going to call order and move on to MLA Elliott, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here today, all of you. And I think that what I've been so encouraged to hear today is that your understanding and your stressing of the fact that it is so complex and that it requires so much collaboration between organizations and orders of government. One thing I'm going to ask a question that allow you to continue on just where you ended, but I also wanted your thoughts on the CMHC report that says that starts are actually up 128%. in Nova Scotia. Now, I realize that starts, but you have to start before you can finish and before you can move in. So I'd like your comments on that. So my question is, since the last Action for Housing progress report was issued last year, what additional progress has the province made towards the plan's target, and what does this say about your continued momentum in delivering results? So probably a good, in addition to my questions about CMHC, probably a good chance for you to continue on with your comments from my colleague's question.
Deputy Morrissey, do we want to go to Ms. Morren Fraser? Or?
If I can start.
Yeah, go ahead, Deputy Morrissey.
Great, and thank you for the question, MLA Outhis. Again, every question that's posed is complex. Housing is a complex issue. So when you look at starts, yes, it's good the starts are up, but that was because of so many different factors. We work with NSCC, as an example, through Labour Skills and Immigration to ensure there's enough spots there for skilled trades. There are certain programs in place with respect to giving tax incentives so that more people have an opportunity to go through the trade skills in that particular sector, as an example. There's things we're doing around red tape and regulation in order to reduce the burden to speed up the process for housing. So it was not just one thing about, well, we hope and pray that the private sector comes in and starts building houses. That's not what's happening. There's so many different things happening at the exact same time. So many different programs which impact different clients within the housing spectrum. There are lots of different things that go into the number. One of the things we've identified is around the housing starts and housing completions. Nova Scotia is lagging behind other parts of the country about why does it take additional time to finish a house once a house gets started, if we can speed up that process. But that's a part of that trade skills analysis is going, what's preventing some of those private sector businesses to do that? What is that AI adoption? Working with companies around off-site building. So again, the complexity of the answers to one specific question is far and wide, and we can dig deep into specifically each specific topic, but we'd be here for hours. We have hundreds of staff working on this, working on programs, doing program evaluations, looking for ways for improvement. And so when there's suggestions and working with partners like AHANS and others, trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do now? That's the part. One thing when businesses come into Nova Scotia from an economic development perspective, they ask me, what's our comparative advantage compared to everybody else? Everybody's got mines. Everybody's got minerals. Everybody's got water. So our competitive advantage in Nova Scotia is that when we have problems, we get people in rooms and we tackle the problems. We tackle them seriously and we start applying the resources. That's our special sauce. And so whether it's economic development for things such as defense or wind, or whether it's in the housing side, we are problem solvers, not problem stretchers. And I'm very proud of the work that's being done by the department and the housing agency and the partners we're doing. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. I don't think anybody's going to sleep until we got this problem solved. But as I mentioned, the airplane's flying. We got to make sure that the airplane continues to fly, and making sure that we can get as many people on board that plane as possible to make sure we're all heading in the right direction, which everybody wants to have people in houses. I'll let Tatiana talk to some of the specifics to your question.
Ms. Morren Fraser, please.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so I think that's a really good segue.
Sorry, order. Ms. Morren Fraser, please.
Thank you. I answered to both. I think the deputy's answer really speaks to, there's two pieces to this, right? There's the systemic view looking at trends over time. To your point, you started with about the starts that just came out for May, show a very significant increase in May 2026 compared to May 2025, which is great signal that more housing is getting started across the province. But we all know that's not the full story, and we need to look back over time. And when we look back to when we started the work of this housing plan back in 2022 and 2023, we really have seen a significant shift over the entire housing ecosystem in the number of starts that are getting underway each year and the completions. Although, yes, we are working to try to figure out why those completions aren't coming along as quickly as we would like. We have seen almost 20,000 starts and completions over that year, that time frame. So we are really moving in the right direction, projecting forward, and we can work with projections for population and what the historic permits and starts have been. we are very confident that we are going to see this trajectory continue. We recognize fully that we're not stopping. This is not the end of the story. It's a piece of the puzzle, and we need to keep moving. But the other side of the equation is that there are very real, tangible initiatives and projects that have been introduced. You asked what sort of has changed since the last progress report was issued. And for example, we launched a new first-time homebuyers program. We recognize that we can't just fix one piece at a time. We need to support more homebuyers. Why aren't more people able to access home ownership? And I'll just give you an example that this new homebuyers program allows folks to get mortgages that they maybe couldn't have before for mobile homes on land leases. Makes it easier to do that, and those are some of the most affordable homes for a first-time home buyer. So we're really trying, and we're trying to learn from this pilot as to what else we can do. What else unlocks that first-time housing for folks to get them into housing, build some equity, and free up the rental market a little bit. And then also looking at how our programs are also helping on the other side to get at some of those non-market supply that we need. How do we work with our departments at OSD to make sure that they have the tools they need for the supportive housing facilities that they need to acquire or build? So very much a systems approach, very much pleased with the data. The data, I would say, is a signal that we're moving in the right direction. We are seeing the system respond. Yes, the rental rates are still at, everyone's been quoting 7%, but that is lower than in previous years. The pace of increase in rent is going down. So yes, that's still not where we'd like to see it. We'd like to see it more down around, typical inflation rates. But we're seeing changes in the right direction. It's a huge ship that we're trying to turn around with multi-factors in it. And the signals that we have at our disposal, the input we have from clients, is showing us that these are making a difference, and we need to keep going in the direction that we're going.
MLA Elliott, please.
Thank you very much for those answers, and also, Deputy, I appreciate your obvious passion for what you're doing, and and your colleagues as well. So thank you. I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, MLA Boudreau. Thanks.
MLA Boudreau.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everyone, for being here. And it's certainly an important topic, and one that has been important since really we took office. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this round of questions. I'll come back and kind of highlight some stuff later on. But I'll keep this pretty simple, and then I'll pass on to my other colleagues so they have an opportunity. But we really are in year 3 of 5 of this plan, is my understanding. And Tatiana, you'd said a word, confidence, or there's confidence, and that kind of sparked the question I have, because what does give the department the most confidence that we are building a stronger housing system and we're moving towards kind of where we want to be, and we've moved in those 3 years of the plan. So what is it that gives you that confidence that we are on the right trajectory?
Deputy Morrissey.
Thank you for the question, and I'll start, but really the people around me are the ones that have done the heavy lifting. I was fortunate to come into this role a year ago to be a part of it and to get in it while the plane was up in the air. The confidence we have is that some of the numbers that we put in the original plan, we've gotten to where we would like to be, but the work doesn't stop, and so we will continue to go and drive more until we see some of the statistics and numbers get to the numbers that we all feel comfortable with. But we know that's going to take time. This is a generational shift in housing that we got to fix, and we need to make sure we have the resources applied to it to do it. When I look at the housing starts, that's a good signal, number of completions. When I see the excitement in in the housing, working with partners and what they're able to do, the innovation that we're able to work with within the nonprofit sector and working with partners around that stuff. When we get calls, the first call when Build Canada Homes got established was in Nova Scotia. Why? Because they know we're problem solvers. And so at the end of the day, when the federal government calls us first, we know we're doing something right. And so I think that's a huge pat on the back to the department, to the government on the signals that we're trying to do. Proposals around Shannon Park. That was one of the first proposals that the government had gotten, and look what we've been able to do. We've taken from 100 units, now have gone 13 times, multiple 13, 14 times, over 1,300 units in Shannon Park to be developed, and work's done. ground is being prepared for that work down there. On FPT calls, federal, provincial, territorial calls with colleagues, we get calls. New Brunswick calls and says, how are you guys doing this? Those are calls when you get unsolicited calls about, like, it's a complex problem, and they're calling Vicki, and they're calling Tatiana, they're calling a housing agency. How are you doing this? This has been transformational with respect to some of the information and some of the things that have been done, things that have not been done either before or in a long, long time. And doing a shift is really, really hard. And the amount of efforts and the amount of resources, over $300 million put into the housing work that's being done, a budget that was increased last year, even though the fiscal times that currently have, the confidence that people must have that we are on track and doing those things. Is there more work to be done? Absolutely. Can we do more? We would love to. And we continue to do that every single day. Anybody else want to?
I think you said it all, Deputy.
Okay, we're going to go to Emily Timmins.
Well, you have a great team across the table, absolutely, and it's good to hear a lot of the good news and what's happening. I mean, it's been almost 30 years since basically public housing has been being built, new homes, new building public housing, and I do believe you mentioned 515 public housing units that are established already, and then also 289 that's underway. I mean, that's incredible when you look at 30 years, no investments have been placed in that area. I'm moving on to, you might have answered a little bit of this, but if you can expand on it, that would be great. Maybe some specific examples. Partnerships with nonprofits, providers, municipalities, developers, and community organizations are central to the plan. Can you share examples of how the collaborational approach is helping the province deliver better results?
Deputy Morrissey?
I'll start. Thank you for the question. And I'll start, and I'm going to defer again to Vicki or Tatiana, who have some of the very specific details in some of the partnerships. I will say, under the leadership of Minister White, who was appointed minister last year, or earlier this year, around his passion for this sector and his story that he tells. He is very, very passionate and pushes our department every single day because he knows the story. He's got a story himself. He grew up in public housing. He talks about the impact it has on him and the system that he's evolved to. And if you look at that pathway as an example, I know we have other examples where things may not be so rosy, but there are some very good examples of families and individuals, Nova Scotians, who have worked their way through public housing and now look what they're doing, look where they're at, who have now gotten to those situations. So I want to just give some credit where credit is due, where Minister White has certainly done a lot of work and effort of pushing the department, whether it's through the Public Housing Agency or through the department and the works that we're doing, to push us further. So just to know the work is not done. We're not stopping just because we've met or exceeded some of the targets we have. Vicki, do you want to add any other details?
Yeah.
Ms. Elliott?
Thank you. We take the approach of planning from the outside in, is what I would say, and I think that's been incredibly successful for us. And so to the word partnership, we take that to the bank. I would say when I first joined housing in 2021, we were just starting to create those partnerships. And when developers have you on speed dial and they're saying, things are looking good, the province is doing good things and things are looking good, and thank you for the work. When community providers, you can sit down and have a coffee with them and you I mean, I can think about programs that we've created over coffee with our community providers. I would say one of the biggest successes has been the executive panel on housing, because that has actually led to policy and legislative changes and systemic changes. You can't change anything in silos. And I've never seen more work done at a systems level than I have since I joined housing, because you can't do it in a silo. Because to the deputy's point, it takes everyone at the table. And so through the work of the executive panel, we have Halifax Water at the table, we have HRM at the table. We've managed to identify little piddly things in legislation that take up way too much time on HRM's end that we've managed to change in the HRM charter, to substantial policy change like the interim suburban policy that's enabled development to happen while the suburban plan is taking place. And so it's only through those partnerships that we've enabled all of those pieces to come together. And I've never seen anything like it. Build Canada Homes, our relationship with the federal government is incredible. We're often held up as the gold star in terms of the achievements under the National Housing Strategy. And again, we were the first agreement signed under the Build Canada Homes agency. So I would just say that you can't do anything alone, and planning from the outside in continues to be our mantra, and we'll be going forward.
Thank you.
MLA Burns, please.
Good morning, and thank you for sharing all the hard work that everybody's putting into this problem that as we address things and move forward. So I guess I'll ask a slightly different question. I have some communities in my area, and so I wanted to know about how the plan supports inclusion and equity in their housing approach. So if you could share what progress has been made related to supporting African Nova Scotian communities, Indigenous communities, and other systemic barriers in regards to the plan and how you work through that. I would appreciate that.
Ms. Morren Fraser, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. Really important question, and really glad that you asked it. So, number of things that I'm really proud to talk about that I'll just share with you within the overall approach that we take to go along with what ADM Elliott said, is that it's all through partnerships, including all communities, including those that may have experienced underrepresentation. So to go along with that, we've recently launched a new initiative that I think is going to really help us to understand where our programs are potentially not getting accessed by some historically marginalized groups. We've launched a new self-identification process for our programs. It's voluntary. We launched it just this winter, but we're already starting to see significant uptake. I was just talking to the team this morning, and we're waiting for a report, but what we're seeing so far is that about 70% are voluntarily filling out this information and giving us even more with, there's a potential opportunity to tell us even more information than what our questions ask. This is going to help us to understand who our programs are serving, where the gaps might be, and then follow up with community to find out why that is, and if there are changes and adjustments we need to make to that. So that's just one piece I want to mention that I'm really, really proud of. We also work, of course, very closely through our existing programs with communities, African Nova Scotian communities and Indigenous communities. So we've ensured that we've dedicated funding as a commitment that was in the Action for Housing Plan to Indigenous and African Nova Scotian organizations, for example, through the Community Housing Growth Fund, to nonprofit organizations that are led by African Nova Scotian organizations, and through other programs that are led by Indigenous organizations, for example, our Affordable Housing Development Program, ensuring that Indigenous housing projects are funded, and through our Community Housing Infrastructure Repair Program to ensure that we are supporting Indigenous housing providers in preserving that very important affordable housing. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that the survivors of gender-based violence is a part of this. It's a really big, important part of this. It started off as something that we kind of hoped wouldn't have a huge amount of uptake, but turns out it does, which is a bit sad that there's so many people who need it, but we're so grateful that we have this opportunity. So growing that support for those who need access.
Order, please. The time has elapsed, so we're going to move back to MLA Chender, please, and we'll have 12 minutes for the second round.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll probably come back around to this because I do have a question, but how much time? 12 minutes. 12 minutes. But in the interest of time, I just want to go back to something that my colleague was asking about, which is the special planning areas. We don't know how many are completed, but hopefully we'll find out. 63,000 planned, as we understand, 11,000 in some form of approval or building. No answer on how many are completed. Those percentages aren't great, given that the rationale for the special planning areas was to speed things up and make things happen faster. But homes are homes. Our understanding, though, is that of those 63,000 planned, there is only a handful that are set up to be truly affordable. And the ones I know about are through partnership with the YWCA, which only happened when the developer whom the government wrote a check to gave it back and said, you know what, we are not in a position to build affordable housing, and went out and made a wonderful partnership with the YWCA, which I think has been great. So I guess my question is there further contemplation of affordability in these 63,000 planned units? And if not, why not?
Ms. Elliott, please.
Thank you for the question. Again, we are using every tool available to us to create more supply, to create affordability, to create the programs that Nova Scotians need. And special planning areas is under our Create New Supply pillar of the action plan, because we know, and we were told by Turner Drake, the best way to achieve affordability is through new supply. Obviously, we still need to grow the non-market sector, and that's been said here today as well, and so we are working to do that simultaneously. Within the special planning areas, you mentioned Mount Hope. There are plans. I'm not going to name developers, but there certainly are plans. There's a recognition that we need more ground-based housing and we need affordable home ownership. And developers will go where the market is. And so if they recognize that that's the market now, then they will create homes to connect with that market. And so absolutely there's talk of that. You mentioned about faster. One thing that the key thing that special planning areas do for the development community is they create certainty. And so oftentimes when a developer approaches council, regional council with a concept, they put a lot of time and effort and money before they can even get a shovel in the ground, before they get approval to get a shovel in the ground. And so part of the hesitation for developers has been, I don't know if this is going to fly. I don't know if council's going to approve this. The special planning area designation gives that certainty. And so we've always maintained that they will still go through all the due diligence. This is not a free pass for the development community. However, they now have the certainty. So projects that they may not have undertaken, they're now undertaking. And in that way, we are certainly speeding up development overall.
Menchenton.
I appreciate that. It does sound to me, though, like less than 20% are being built. And so notwithstanding that certainty, it's not happening at the scale that was promised. And it sounds like, we could talk for hours about whether the answer to the housing crisis is supply writ large. Someday, totally. But in my lifetime, like in the timeline of a person looking for housing right now, no. That is the conclusion that we are left with from this conversation. And so the question is, how are we dealing with people who are leaving our province because they can't find housing they can afford? How are we dealing with the fact that we are the most expensive province for renters in the country? I think probably if you crunch all the numbers someday, if we build all the housing, that won't be true, but it is true. And so what I'm trying to understand is, how are we dealing with that? And so I guess maybe I'll just segue in the interest of time. One of the things that I'm interested in is this, I know that the government did move a pilot program to actually start providing equity to non-market providers who are wanting to preserve affordable housing. And that's something I had heard from those partners for a long time would be helpful. It's a pilot project. And maybe I'll ask you, Mr. Kabalen, do you think that should be made permanent, that Community Housing Capital Fund, or are there other opportunities like that would help to preserve some of the affordable housing that we have left?
Mr. Kabalen.
Thank you, through the chair to the member. Yes, I think all the programs that support the nonprofit sector, the community housing sector, are important. I think that there's been significant, to give credit where due, significant growth in acquisition and development in the sector due to these programs. You know, I think the deputy spoke about the complexity around solving the housing crisis, and that complexity, I think, is even more paramount in the nonprofit sector. I think so with certainty, I think there's a word was used a lot today, more certainty in the program environment would absolutely provide a better ability for us as housing developers, much like the market developers, to be able to build out our project pipelines. But that said, this government, federal government, municipal governments across this province have really been excellent partners. You know, I'll point to work we're doing in Yarmouth at AHANS. Without the support of the provincial government, we wouldn't have 44 units under construction, where the first 12 tenants moved in recently, and the remaining households will be moving in by the end of July. And you know, and we're constantly looking to leverage the community housing capital fund as well. But I would say that complexity with a lack of certainty around the programs does create challenges for the sector. And you know, we have strong relationships with the civil servants in the department who do excellent work to support us. And yeah, the more programs could be certain, the more we could know how much is left available in those funds throughout the year. Those would be excellent pieces for the sector. However, you know, we trust the relationships we've built. We trust what we hear from the staff who are doing excellent work on these files. And it is complex, and without certainty, that complexity is amplified for sure.
MLA Chender.
That's helpful. And so you mentioned Yarmouth. Another project that I've been watching with great interest is the Upper Hammonds Plains Community Land Trust. I understand that to be the biggest African Nova Scotian community housing project in the country, or the African Canadian, done without any government assistance. From the provincial government. And so I guess my question is, this will be for the deputy, how is the decision made whether or not to support community housing projects? Is it because the pot is only a certain size, as the other member alluded to, or is it based on merit? Why wouldn't we be supporting every community housing project that comes forward from a organization that exists and is reputable?
Deputy Morrissey.
Great. Thank you for the question. And I may defer to my colleagues around some of the specific details of selection. I think we all recognize there's multiple different programs that'll have multiple different triggers to do certain things. And in this particular area, there has to be some checks and balances with business plans that come in and the evaluation of, is this the right project? What is the financial impact? So there are multiple different layers to ensure that, is this project shovel ready? Is it ready to go? So there's multiple different layers to that decision-making process. Obviously, in a time of fiscal constraint and budgets, we are allocating resources where we see successful programs having the greatest impact and doing things that we need to do, and also evaluating things like rent and supplements that we see that impact. We have to make sure people stay in the homes that they stay in, where they currently are, or have a house to be in. So there's a multitude of different factors on the dials as we start turning different things, but specifically around here, we have not just one program, multiple programs, land for housing as an example, other things we're trying to do to ensure we have the right triggers, because one nonprofit may come in one solution, and there's other solutions that we may want to go, and the partnerships that we have with the Mount Hope or Amherst, there's lots of partners. We talk about one, they're in the 10s and 20s of partners that we're working with. You want to speak any specifically to that program? And
Ms. Elliott, please.
Yes, what I can say is that we certainly work within our budget parameters. 4 years ago, we had a hard time getting community providers through the door under our Affordable Housing Development Program, but through various means, seed funding and the money that we give to the Community Housing Transformation Center that helps to build their capacity has grown quite substantially. And so our Affordable Housing Development Program, we had trouble getting it out the door, is what I would say, the funding, and it was mostly market providers. Now, the majority of who we fund, close to 100% of them, them are our community housing providers, and we do look at applications that come in. We look at their experience in community housing. We look at the depth of affordability. So there are a number of criteria that we review against, and then we rank projects. And shovel ready is one of them, because somebody may throw in an application under the Affordable Housing Development Program now, but they may not be ready for 2 years. So we wait and we'll say, okay, we'll assess you when you're closer to shovel ready. And so we've done a great job. The team's done a great job. I say we, and it's the team behind me has done a fantastic job of being able to manage that. So we don't, and if you don't meet the criteria, then it's a no. But if you meet the criteria, they've done a really great job of managing the projects in such a way that they're coming online and we're able to continue to fund them.
Emily Chender with 30 seconds.
Okay, I mean, I guess this is a leading question, but I'll just end by asking you, Mr. Kabalen, I take your point about certainty. This is a leading question. Do you think that those programs that have been referred to need more funding in order to reach either the 7 or the 20%? Is that going to require more funding? And should it be restricted to non-market providers at this point?
Mr. Kabalen with 15 seconds.
Absolutely, more funding would be appreciated to scale the sector. Also acknowledging how much has been spent to date in the last number of years is significant. So.
Order, please. We will move on to MLA Drouin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here today and for their comments. So when government released the housing plan almost 3 years ago, they projected the 5-year cost would be around $1.7 billion. And I think we're about 75% of the way through that expenditure. I mean, this is costing Nova Scotians hundreds of millions of dollars a year to implement this plan. And I want to say at the outset, I deeply appreciate the work of the department and department staff in executing on the policy decisions that Cabinet makes and that the Minister makes. Fundamentally, the budget decisions and the policy decisions are ministerial decisions, decisions that sit at the Cabinet table with the Premier and the Ministers. And so I appreciate that the department is working within those decisions to execute and deliver for Nova Scotians. So we've seen incredible expenditures and a continued plan for hundreds of millions of dollars on something that's deeply important and necessary in Nova Scotia. But the unfortunate fact is that we're not seeing the results that we should be. So we remain the most, we are now, we were not, but we now are the most expensive province in Canada to sign a lease. Some indications are that rental prices have gone up for 40% since 2020. The average cost of a home has gone up $200,000 for home buyers in that same time frame since 2020. We know that we've heard that only about 4% of our housing is public housing, and there is a wait list that for many people is years long to access that public housing. And there are some examples of supported housing that are working incredibly well, but they are few and far between, and they're falling short of the needs of the people who require access to them. So my question is this. How could these hundreds of millions of dollars annually be better spent? Which programs or expenditures are delivering the least bang for the public buck and could be removed or cut back and money diverted to be used in more effective ways to support more affordable rental, to better allow people to access homes should they wish to buy them, and to provide the investments that we need in public housing and supportive housing in those markets as well? And this question is for government, and I'd love to hear as well from AHANS and from Turner Drake and on thoughts that they may have.
Recognize Deputy Morrissey.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. With respect to budget and resources and programs, the housing spectrum is wide. Is really wide. And so making choices sometimes, are we doing it strictly on cost? Are we doing it on social benefit? Are we doing it on speed? So all those things are being calculated into the programs that are either developed or changed or sunsetted. And so where does it make sense to allocate the resources to benefit most Nova Scotians? And we have a 5-year plan, year 3. We are seeing progress. Starts are up. So some of the triggers we've done with respect to how do we build more supply, starts are up. SBAs are acknowledged as an example. But building capacity in community as well has gone up. Supportive housing, more units are available for supportive housing. Can there be more? Absolutely. We're working with other departments. We're working with other funders. We're working with other colleagues across the country about the scarcity of resources. So I think she wants me to stop.
Okay, so MLA Durham, you have go from there, please.
Thank you. And I do appreciate all the good work that's underway, but my question is specifically in all of those projects that are underway, some of them are delivering, others are not delivering as much. My question is about which are the ones that we could look at reducing and diverting the funds to the things that we're hearing Ahan speak about in terms of where we need our investment.
I recognize Deputy Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you. I'll start, and I'm going to defer to Vicki, who is certainly into this day-to-day more than I am. It's like picking which kid is your favorite kid. It was just a difficult question to answer. What we're doing on an ongoing basis are evaluating every specific program and going, what's the best benefit for that constituent for that program? We set targets such as public housing. We knew in order for us to build capacity in public housing, we had to commit to both building new units and then also making sure we had budgets allocated to protect the existing units.
Order, please. Pardon me. MLA Druin, I missed, but you have questions for other people on this? Yes? Where would you like to go?
Thank you. No, and I do appreciate that. Maybe if we could have Ahans or Turner Drake offer some suggestions on this, and then perhaps if there's time, we could have government respond to those. Thank you.
Let's go over to Mr. Lovitt.
Thank you. Through the chair to the member. Certainly, I don't have any perspective on the specific programs that the government is implementing and the value for money spent there. I think maybe from my perspective, what I would say is that I would caution against taking maybe too narrow a view of the accounting in terms of the dollars spent and what constitutes a cost and what constitutes a benefit, and also the time over which those benefits accrue. I think that there is, as we've heard, housing described as a social benefit, as economic infrastructure. There are numerous indirect and secondary benefits that arise from having broadly affordable and available housing that are difficult to quantify. And I think there is an enduring benefit when the results that the programs are producing are permanent in terms of producing a structural change in the housing system. It's not just about addressing a current crisis. It's about setting us up for a better system for the long term. So from that perspective, I would say that investments that increase the capacity of the non-market housing sector, that increase its presence as a permanent proportion of the entire housing system, have a number of benefits that go far beyond their initial cost of setup. And especially as that investment is made over time and as that sector becomes more robust, the cost of sustaining it will drop because it becomes more self-sustaining. So I would look at that as sort of the best long-term opportunity for supporting Nova Scotians.
MLA Druin?
Thank you for that. And if Mr. Kabalen has something to add.
Mr. Kabalen, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I would echo Mr. Lovitt's comments. I also don't envy government to have to answer a question of what program should be cut, and nor is that my area of expertise. But I would echo Mr. Lovitt's comments. The nonprofit sector is robust and ready. Today, the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association is meeting in Dartmouth for their annual AGM and Education Day. There's 175 people attending who are mobilized and ready and robust. Minister White was there this morning speaking while we were convening. I think the sector's ready there's a mobilized sector, as Mr. Lovitt spoke to. It's building capacity. I think I would answer your question and say our belief would be that's the priority. We should really be prioritizing the attention, the investment into scaling that sector out. I think government's done a really good job. They fund the Nonprofit Housing Association to build that scale, and there's been historic investments in the sector. But I would also say we need to continue those investments year over year for a generation to have the impact I think that we all want to see.
MLA Druin?
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. So I will ask this question. This is in relation to the Office of the Auditor General's submission. In 2022, an audit on the oversight and management of government-owned public housing was released, and Department of Growth and Development has 9 recommendations and actions that are outstanding out of those 20, including the implementation of lease renewal process that verifies tenants' continued eligibility for public housing, including assessing whether they are overhoused, and an assessment of eligibility criteria for those seeking public housing. I'm wondering what resources or direction the department needs from the minister to complete these measures, and if everything is in place and they have what they need, when can we expect to see them completed?
Deputy Morrissey.
Great. Thank you for the question. We continue to look at the recommendations from the OAG and appreciate the feedback that they've given us on an ongoing basis with respect to our progress on that particular report. Pam can speak specifically to some of the things that you talked about, but the progress that we've attained of going electronic versus paper-based. There are lots of very good examples of how we're trying to find efficiencies beyond what the OAG has even outlined to be more efficient and reallocate resources to be more effective in what we're trying to accomplish. Pam, do you want to speak more about some of the recommendations from them?
Ms. Menchenton with about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And you're quite right. We've got about 55% that's been approved by the Auditor General that's been complete, and we still have a little ways to go. We're hoping to be 80% complete by the fall and 100% complete by the end of fiscal. So some of the things that you'd mentioned about overhousing, so we do have a policy that's in place, and it's actually on our website that you can take a look at. We have also introduced our lease renewal process, so that's already in place and done. And that's to verify tenants' continued eligibility for public housing, which is including assessing whether or not they're overhoused. So some of the things that we still have to do is our tenant engagement strategy and better metrics and measures around unit turnaround. So those are the things that we're working on for the 100% completion by the end of fiscal. So the work that we've been doing so far, that 55%, I appreciate that sounds like we haven't made a lot of progress, but that's been foundational work. That work had to be done so that we could get to the rest of it. So many of the recommendations were intertwined, so we need digital solutions. We stood up an agency. We created a corporate function that didn't exist before. And because I have the platform, and I may have a minute or so less, we have made progress on every single one of our key metrics. So we've reduced unit turnaround time from 178 days in 2022 to now 121. I recognize we still need to do work there. We've reduced the average time in our wait list for people who are accessing priority access by half, more than half, by 52%. It used to be 23 months in 2022. We're down to 11 months now this year. For regular wait lists, we're down 26% from 27 months to 20 months. And we're addressing overhousing, so we've reduced that by 11%. That's a bit of a slow burn. We need units to become available in order for us to move those individuals into right-size units. So we are making continuous progress.
The time has elapsed. I'm going to move to MLA Taggart, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is going to be for Mr. Lovitt, but if I could, just before I start, I really need to comment. Ms. Morren, Fraser, in one of your comments, you used the phrase, allow those new homeowners or young people to build equity. And I think that is absolutely critical as we, in this new, like the cost of home ownership and that sort of thing is really a struggle for young people. And the idea that we can develop a program where we can help those young people get in a home somehow instead of paying rent and actually use their money to build equity is absolutely critical. I just want to say that. But my question for Mr. Lovitt or your partner there, so in your opening comments, you commented that there's still, I think it was upward pressure on the lower market classification. And, you know, it's a bit concerning. You know, if you talk to a professional realtor in housing in particular, you know, they always, the common theme is, you know, you sell somebody a new home, you know, then they're moving out of something, and, you know, the other people are an opportunity to move up. So, you know, we all, you know, certainly around HRM, we've all seen the tremendous amount of new units that have been mostly rentals, but new units that have been put on the market, you know, over the last 5 years. You know, just yesterday, CMHC, somebody else mentioned it here this morning, just yesterday, CMHC commented that I think, what was it, 108 starts are up 128%. That's any way I look at it, that's tremendous success. But where are we? You know, I mean, you know, we've used the phrase, you know, we need more housing. That's how we solve the housing crisis, and I think that's a real legitimate, you know, comment. But where do you see the end? Like, where do we have to get to where that actually starts to benefit? Just your overall thoughts and comments on that, I guess, if I could.
Mr. Lovitt.
Thank you. Yeah, I think to give a precise answer to that question is extremely challenging, and I won't be able to, unfortunately, at least in this seat. Yeah, I think broadly what we should be looking for is a minimum of a 3% vacancy rate across the rental housing stock. And by across, I don't mean the broad average. I mean within, for example, the rent quartile, so within a further breakdown of the price ranges. So not just at the top, the most expensive units coming to market for the first time, but also the older, less expensive, more affordable units. Right now, we're starting to see that top end edge across 3%, but below that, in the cheaper half at least, we're still below 1%. And so at that point, broadly speaking, is where we can expect to see rent increases start to track inflation. So that would be achieving stability in the pricing, not necessarily reversing that or creating more affordability. And so as much as there has been a tremendous amount of supply created and much underway, the reality is that that is not enough relative to the demand that's built up over the last several years, and that will continue to build up maybe at a slower pace going forward. So I think you know, we're maybe rounding a corner, but we're certainly not getting close to a finish line.
Thank you.
Emily Timmins.
Thank you. Message for GD. What examples do you have where provincial support made a community housing project possible where otherwise it would not have been feasible? In the rural areas, the demand for housing is equally, I wouldn't say equally, but it's there, more so than Halifax. If you can provide some examples maybe in the rural areas and allow the communities to advance. We've been trying as an MLA for years, and with the previous MLA in Victoria Lakes, to build partnerships with businesses. But there was always, the return on investment was too long. So if you could provide some community initiatives and examples that would benefit the community.
Deputy Morrissey.
Great, thank you for the question. Vicki or Tatiana may jump in here. I give it just off the top of mind quickly. One was talked about this morning down in Yarmouth. Was a great example where that I think was 40 units?
36 units in the province.
36 units, but people already occupied. If you look at Amherst, a couple of different projects that have happened in that particular location. There are many other examples around the province, not just in HRM, where that they may be smaller in scale with 10s and 20s, but there certainly are other additional projects that have been done across the province in that particular sector. Vicki, do you want to add a little bit more context?
Ms. Elliott.
Thank you. I know one that our minister is certainly very proud of is a home ownership model that we just announced down in Amherst. And it's an incredible partnership between the United Way and the province and other levels of government, and as well as investment from private industry. And it's a shared equity model which will keep home ownership affordable in perpetuity, and that's what makes it so special. So while some are available for renting, others, people purchase the home, and then when they sell it, the United Way takes some of the equity, any equity that's made out of it, and then can reinvest it into the next project. So when we talk too about sustainability of the community housing sector, this is a great way to do that. And so it is very much a domino effect. We have a lot of others I could give examples of in rural communities. We Student Housing Nova Scotia has purchased a number of through utilizing our community housing acquisition program, has purchased a number of units around Wolfville and Acadia to support student housing. We have the Sunset Community Incorporated in Pugwash, Cumberland County, 40 units in total. We've got a Liverpool Queens Neighborhood Co-op Housing, another nonprofit organization, 30 total units, all 100% of them affordable in perpetuity. We have Akuma Holdings in Lake Loon. And while that's an HRM, I would say that that's in a rural area, a more rural area of HRM. The Ahans in Yarmouth. We have Appleseed in Antigonish, 17 units, 17 affordable. We have, I don't know how much you want to hear, but I guess I would just summarize to say we have incredible examples right across the province, and community organizations that didn't exist just 3-4 years ago that are now growing and succeeding because of the spectrum of investments and the tools that we've been able to provide them as a province, right from capacity building to seed funding to under the Affordable Housing Development Program and the funding through our Community Housing Acquisition Program that has allowed them to build that important equity that will eventually make them self-sustaining.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to MLA Boudreau, please.
Thank you, Chair. And how much time do I? 4 minutes. Okay.
3.
I might get to a question. Probably not going to. I've been kind of just trying to pay attention to kind of what's been discussed here today. It's obviously a very important topic, and also just given the kind of the topic of today, which is kind of reviewing the Action for Housing plan, that 5-year plan, I kind of have some notes and some ideas of things I think. Some of it has been mentioned today, some of it hasn't, but I thought I'd highlight some of those things as well. But really, what I have heard is really this is the first time in 30 years that we've really put a bit of focus on public housing building, which is incredible, right? And I've heard it's successive governments haven't made this a priority. And it wasn't really in our original platform in 2021, but housing came front and center very soon after taking office. And that's how we've been nimble. We've been able to say, okay, this has become a priority for this government. And I think of, since 2023, the $1.2 billion that we have committed to putting into this plan already of the $1.7 billion. So close to 74% of the funding has already been committed. And in fact, in a very difficult budget year, there was an increase of 14%. And that increase was $57 million. And in fact, $37 million of that $57 million are for programs directed at affordable housing owned by nonprofits. I think that's an important context because that's 80% more than what was there the previous budget. These are important numbers to understand because this is a commitment of this government to that. And I think, I had the privilege of being the Minister of Community Services for a short period of time, now OSD. And I think Michael and I have had some conversations at that time. And when I think of supportive housing and the importance of that on the spectrum and where we were when we started as a government, because when I was there, I think there was something around 700 units that we had committed to getting. There were almost none when we started there was no focus on supportive housing before this government. And I think I heard the number today, 1,095. That's an incredible number. There's lots more to do. I absolutely understand that, and I think you highlight that in kind of your report about, the economics of it, but also about getting people where they need to go. And I want to highlight a couple of things about the programs in this report, or in our housing plan. 976 first-time home buyers were supported in this plan, in our first home buyers program. That's 78% of our goal of our 5-year plan. 4,909 affordable and supportive housing units have been created, 98% of our 5-year goal. 266 affordable modular units, our goal was 250. So we've achieved more than that. And I think between May 1st of 2023 and July 1st of 2025, 109 people were moved out of supportive units into more permanent housing. I think that's the success of our partners as well.
Order, please. Emily Boudreau's time has run out. And Emily Boudreau, you are forgiven because you are a new member. But we'll remind you that this committee is a committee where we examine the implementation of policy, not extolling the benefits or talking about how policy is. Anyway, we will talk about that in our lunch after we're finished the committee. But you are forgiven. So that's the time allotted for questions for this committee meeting. I would like to give our witnesses a chance to do some quick closing comments, real quick, if you don't mind. So I'll begin with Deputy Morrissey. Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to be quick, I just want to acknowledge the people at this table, but there's also hundreds of people and organizations. As was mentioned, there's a couple hundred people meeting over in Dartmouth talking about this. Some of these things in infrastructure did not exist 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. We know there's more work to be done. We are not happy until we continue to see progress on our plans. And we do take your feedback genuinely, and we care. We care about the people that we're trying to serve. And so I just want to acknowledge the people behind me and the department and the housing agency and the many other stakeholders who come to work every single day to work hard to try to solve the problems that are challenging at times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Morrissey. Mr. Kabalen?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the time with the committee today. Again, want to acknowledge how much has been done to respond to Mr. Boudreau's, Member Boudreau's comments. And so much good has come of that. And to focus on the amount of supportive housing that's been invested, the amount of support that's been built at the deep end, at the for people experiencing homelessness, people who need deeply affordable housing, but also to draw attention that the work is not done. And I think that's been acknowledged across the table here today. And I think to know that as this work continues, as Mr. Lovitt spoke to, the sector is mobilizing. And when I leave here today, I'll be going to Dartmouth and we'll be speaking more about how there's a sector ready to solve this problem in partnership. There's a federal government that was noted today that's ready to solve this. Municipal governments that are stepping up with federal dollars they have, but also with unique opportunities. And so I think, to kind of remind everyone that through partnership is how we solve this. It is not one government's problem to solve, not one level or one reigning government's problem to solve. It's all of ours as a community. And so let's keep our focus on building those partnerships, amplifying those partnerships. And we know we can end homelessness. We know we can give every Nova Scotian an affordable home where they can thrive.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lovitt, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just briefly say that thank you for the invitation, and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for the questions, and we look forward to any future opportunities to continue to support this discussion.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you all for being here and for a really robust discussion on one of the most pressing matters in the province. So thank you for being here. You may leave. And I believe there's media outside. And we'll go into committee business. So I don't think we need a break. It's pretty standard committee business that we have right now. So the first order of business is correspondence. Order, please. I'm just going to ask people to quietly exit the room. Thank you. Okay, so our first order of business is the correspondence. There's an email from Chris Benjamin, the co-chair of the Affordable Energy Coalition, from following up from the May 13th meeting. Is there any discussion on that piece of correspondence? MLA Chender.
I'm not sure what the protocol is, but would it be appropriate to make a formal request of the new energy minister to meet with the Affordable Energy Coalition, given their testimony and, you know, their request to move forward on affordability solutions for Nova Scotians?
Thank you. Sorry, is that your hand up? MLA Boudreau, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I think, I think if there's a request, there's a new Minister of Energy, let's give them an opportunity to respond to them if they're wanting to meet with them. I think that's fine.
MLA Chender.
I would like to move a motion that the committee request the Minister of Energy to meet with the Affordable Energy Coalition, given that that coalition, government was a part of that coalition. There is a report. There has been a request for a meeting now with two successive.
Order. Just make the motion. And
okay,
then you
that's
can
the
speak
motion.
To it. Okay, just reiterate the motion.
That the committee requests the Minister of Energy to take a meeting with the Affordable Energy Coalition regarding energy affordability.
Okay, now you may speak to it.
And reason is because they have requested the previous energy minister, the current one. Government was a part of that committee, and affordability is a huge issue for Nova Scotians.
MLA Rankin.
Just to reinforce the point, I'll support the motion because also Minister McLeod was the ministerial assistant for some time in that portfolio. So I don't think he needs significant time to prepare for that meeting. So I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? MLA Taggart.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to support the motion. I don't think it's the place of this committee to start making appointments for ministers or deputy ministers or anybody else. I think that, there's any number of different well-meaning organizations around Nova Scotia that want to speak to any number of ministers about important pieces, but it's not our place to be sending a letter to a minister saying we want you to take a meeting with XYZ. So that's I will not support the motion. Thank you.
MLA Chender.
Before we call the question, I just want to respond to that and to say that this isn't a well-meaning organization. This is a coalition that was put together in part with government representatives at the table to solve the challenges of energy affordability, which every MLA is well aware of, and the government has stopped communicating with them. They were witnesses here at this committee. They indicated a desire, so I think it is within the purview of the committee. Of course, members can vote the way they want, but certainly on behalf of our caucus, we believe that this government should be taking energy affordability more seriously, and this is a good first step.
Thank you. Any other comments? MLA Timmins.
If you look at the history of what's been happening the last while, government has been putting forward many initiatives to look at affordability within the energy sector. And I'm not supporting the motion either. It is up to the department and the communications between the department and the minister to set their meeting schedule and so on. Thanks.
Thank you. Shall I call the question? Oh, MLA Druin.
Thank you, Chair. I would indicate my support for the motion. I'd also just note that the motion is not that we set a meeting. The motion is that we recommend that the minister take a meeting, which is a very different thing than presuming to set the minister's calendar. And I think that's very much within the purview of our committee. So I'll be supporting it.
Okay, thank you very much. So, MLA Taggart.
Well, I don't think it's within our purview. I mean, we've been reminded many times in here that this is a value for money. We're here because of the Auditor General's, to deal with issues within the Auditor General's purview. Now, we have chosen to add additional meetings when the Auditor General is not, it doesn't have, I don't know the right way to frame this, but you know what I mean, have her, I don't want this to sound like, the Auditor General's office has a lot of work, so it's understandable that she can't have something ready here for every week, so we do these unaudited meetings in cases where we think with legitimacy, you know, are important issues. But again, for us to stray that far off of what the intended purpose of this committee is, I think it's setting a bad precedent. That's my honest opinion, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed? Nay.
So the motion does not carry. So thank you very much. We'll go on with the rest of the business. So I will say that I think this is a discussion we should be continuing to have. I think that the interpretation of the mandate of PAC is I think people have different types of interpretation. So a good thing to put on our agenda for a more informal meeting for us as we work to improve the efficacy of the committee. So the next meeting date, folks, is September 9th. With the Department of Opportunities and Social Development regarding the May 2024 report of the Auditor General, Health, Safety and Well-being of Children Placed in Temporary Care Arrangements and Child and Youth Care Homes. So that is the next meeting. I wish you a good and prosperous summer, and I will remind all members that we do have an informal lunch meeting with the Auditor General at 11:30. Is there any other business? Great. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.